Welcome to the Floral Art Academy podcast, a podcast for floral preservation artists. I'm one of your hosts, Tamsin.
And I'm the other host, Valdis.
And we're a husband and wife team from Queensland, Australia. And we've been preserving wedding bouquets in resin since 2022. Yeah.
Yep. Since 2022.
Yeah. So
we've been doing resin a bit longer than that, but
we have
moved into bouquet preservation in 2022.
Yes, and now we are talking all things floral preservation.
Did we have any questions to start today's session off?
We got a question on YouTube and we got a question on TikTok, and I thought maybe I could meld them together and answer them both in one podcast episode. So the questions are really different, but I thought we could address both of them through this podcast. So I was thinking, I've been wanting to do this podcast specifically for a little while, it's been in my head, and that is color correction. It is so hot right now. Everybody wants to learn about it. Everyone wants to do it or incorporate it in their bit. Well, not everyone, but a lot of people are incorporating it into their professional wedding bouquet preservation businesses.
But the professionals don't want to say anything about it.
No, gatekeep, girl boss, forever. And I did a TikTok about this a little while ago.
I thought it was quite a funny TikTok.
People thought it was really funny, and it was funny. It was hilarious. And I think the gatekeeping is warranted for sure, because people are out here doing the research, doing the testing and failing and trial and error, and so they want to keep those secrets closely guarded to their chest, and I think that's a good idea. And so this podcast, I'm going to be sharing what I know, which is just information I have picked up around the place on the internet. Anyone can really find this information. I'm not sharing anyone's trade secrets or anything like that. So yeah.
And this is a new topic for me. I have done no research.
We've done very, very little research.
But you used to color correct.
I did. I have dabbled in color correction in the past, and it's something that I explicitly state in our terms and conditions that I don't do, because I don't like color correcting things.
It was a pain, or what?
It was a pain. It was a huge pain. So I think, and for those newbies who might have stumbled upon this and gone, what the damn hell is she talking about? I'm talking about color correcting dried flowers to put into resin. So basically changing the appearance of those flowers, and generally it's done to make them look more similar to how they were when they were fresh. So if you've got white flowers, for example, that have gone yellow or brown, bringing them back to a white color, or a deep color like red, for example, can dry really dark, almost black. So I've seen people color correct those back to a bright red color.
And if you're putting your flowers in resin, the idea is the color correction also stops the transparent parts that are caused from bruising of the flowers.
Yes, the bruising of the flowers, where you see those transparent spots on the petals. So one of the questions we got on TikTok, we got a message from someone asking about color correction, and was it how to do color correction?
I think that one was, how can you do color correction on white flowers?
How can you do color correction on white flowers? Now, personally, my view of color correction, I don't like the way that it looks, and that's based on my opinion of what I have done in the past. I didn't like how it looked, but also my opinion of other people's flowers that I've seen color corrected. I just think I'm not a huge fan. I like the way that the flowers look naturally, and to me, we're trying to preserve these natural elements, and so once it becomes unnatural, I think some of the beauty of the flowers is lost for me. The little details in those flowers, the veining and these tiny little spots. And though I know we're trying to perfect things as much as we possibly can.
Nature isn't perfect.
No, it's not. And I think the more and more that we are racing to get the most perfect, the harder we're making it on ourselves as well, because
and the more fake it looks.
Yes, I don't like the way that it looks fake, and also I think our customers need to know that we're working with things that aren't perfect. We're working with natural materials. And so that's my personal stance on it. However, I have seen some color correction, especially from Australian artists, that looks great. And I think white flowers is one of those ones where color correction probably would be warranted. I think if we were ever to offer it I can't see myself doing that. But if we ever were to offer it, it would probably just be for white flowers. They change so dramatically from fresh to dried, and the brides, I think, really struggle to wrap their head around the fact that their beautiful white roses turn yellow or brown or greenish or whatever it is based on the variety.
Yeah, because say your dried flowers are going into a shadow frame, for instance. If it's not color corrected, it'll look great the first day that you're seeing it, but it will eventually fade to the colors of as if you had just dried it via air drying.
Right. So, I mean, we know that light pink goes white, white goes to ivory, brown, yellow, what have you over time. Those reds, they can change as well. And then, you know, those bright, vibrant colors, they'll just fade, and that's what they do. And that's just what they do. So I know Encapsulated Memories by Emma, who is a bouquet preservation artist in the UK. I don't want to say what country because I can't remember off the top of my head, but she is in the UK and she does these beautiful frames. She does resin and frames, and her frames are incredible, but she openly says that she color corrects every flower that goes into a frame because of that issue.
I think people in UK color correct more than anywhere else though, because I have seen somewhere in the UK someone does color correction classes.
That's really interesting. You know more than me about color correction. I've never seen that before.
I just someone on TikTok they do classes.
That's really cool. So let's talk about the different methods of color correction that I know about. And like I said, I'm not spilling anyone's secrets or anything like that. This is just what I've picked up along the way on my travels on the internet. So number one, the color correction method, I think that's probably the most popular at the moment, is airbrushing. And it's not one that I have experience with because I'm simply not willing to invest in an airbrush and colors and all the rest of it.
Is airbrush just like spray paint?
Kind of, yeah. But I think it's like a finer mist. I think maybe you've got a bit more of a control over... Yeah, I think it's finer.
Okay, so because from memory, you were saying that when you first started the color correction, you were getting these large droplets, and I think you were using floral spray at that point, depending on like if you were starting the spray on the flowers versus if you were like doing quick flicks with the wrist after the spray was already in stream. Right,
so that's another method of color correction, is using a floral spray paint, and I believe the brand is Design Master that I was using. And in the beginning of my bouquet preservation journey, I found this Design Master floral spray and I thought, oh, how cool. And I ended up buying like a bunch of different colors because I think I expected early on in our journey that we were going to be color correcting lots of different types of flowers. And so I have like blue, purple, pink, like all these different color floral sprays, which florists use to spray paint roses to make them whatever color the brides want for their color scheme. And so I experimented with that, and it literally is just spray paint for flowers.
Yeah, it's like a pastel.
Well, it's not pastel because it comes in like all different colors.
Oh, okay.
So like a dark purple, for example, it's like not pastel.
You just didn't buy that color.
I did.
You did? Okay,
yeah, it's on the shelf in the shed. You can go look at it if you want. So yeah, it is literally just spray paint for flowers, and I did experiment with using this on quicksand roses because quicksand roses dry to a grey colour, and so I initially bought a blush because I was trying to bring those flowers back to the blush colour. It, in my opinion, looked heinous. It was disgusting.
I remember
it was
that.
so bad.
It looked like a child project.
It looked awful.
As throwing a spanner in here, as much as you hate color correction, that's when you're looking at it up close though. Like you might either have it as one color, or maybe you have it as like two colors. You got a tiny bit of shading in there. That's when you're looking at it up close, it looks really fake. But if you're just looking at it as you're walking past and the thing is up on the wall and you've got a whole bouquet that's been color corrected, it could look nice.
I'm not saying that it doesn't look nice. I'm just saying my personal preference with my skill level for color correction, I don't like it. I've also seen like artists on the internet run polls about whether they, do people like this color corrected flower or the natural, and overwhelmingly people say the natural.
Yeah, when you got it next
a comparison. But like it's up to the brides, It's always, at the end of the day, it's up to the customer. And if the customer wants it to be color corrected and the customer is willing to pay, because you should be charging for color correction if you're offering that as a service, they're willing to pay for the service, then,
Well, sure, any service that requires additional time should be charged.
Up your prices, everyone. I think that should be like the Floral Art Academy motto. Up your prices. I feel like I'm going to say that every
you upped your prices last week? Oh, so what time are you upping them this week?
Yeah. So we've got the Design Master Floral Spray. I'm sure there's other brands out there, but that one is the most popular.
Okay, so you got the floral spray, and then you got the more fine
and
airbrushing. That comes from airbrushing.
Yes. And then also there's pan pastels.
What's that?
Pan pastels is like, like oil pastels you used to use when you were a kid, like at school?
Not particularly.
Okay.
I wasn't a very artsy craft.
How do I explain this? I don't know how to explain it. Kind of like crayon, but not crayon. So you've got like oil pastels. Pan pastels are like used by painters, like people who are doing like drawing and painting and stuff. And so it's kind of like a little paint
tin-ish.
Yeah, kind of.
Okay.
Think like eyeshadow almost, but like for art, not for your face.
Okay. That helps me so much more.
I'm so sorry. You're just gonna have to Google it, I guess. So I have seen people on the internet say that they use pan pastels and to like brush color on to the flowers, and I've seen this most traditionally used with pressed flowers. So people are taking that brush to like a singular petal or like a pressed flower and sort of brushing.
That would be so time consuming. I imagine you could get the realistic veins and things in the petals at that point. But each layer of colour that you're putting into it to make it more realistic, other than just like a base, like as if you dipped it in paint, that would add extra time. And
yes,
if people are actually charging for their labour and their time, that would just blow out the cost.
Maybe, but maybe it's worth it to some customers. Like maybe they really want that realistic, like picture perfect flower from their day, and I understand that view from the customer's point of view as well. So there's that method as well. Another method that I'd read about, and I tried this and it didn't work, so don't try it because it didn't work, was using like not alcohol ink, but there's these like ink markers. Have you seen those? They're like ink pens.
I think so.
That you can get, and so like one side is like a pen side and one side has like a brush, and people use it to do like watercolor like drawing.
Yep.
I bought a whole set of those because somebody said they used that to color correct flowers. It did not work. Don't even bother. It just, again, it was like me just trying to draw on flowers with a pen, and it either like looked stupid or it just kind of like wrecked the flowers. Like it wasn't worth it. In my opinion. Maybe you've done it and it worked, but it did not work for me.
Okay, and so So you've listed, 4 techniques now? Are there any additional ones?
Not that I know of.
Would you...
besides like acrylic paint. Like painting with just like paint. I wouldn't do that either. Because I feel like that would not yield the best results.
That would make it even more fake looking.
Yes.
Okay, would there be any sort of mix of media that you would use for colour correcting?
What?
Like using one technique to maybe the floral spray to get like just a base layer, and then maybe the airbrush to get...
You could do that. Yeah, you could. So like if you were doing maybe like a red rose, you could do like a red with your floral spray paint and then go in with maybe like a light grey or something like that in with your airbrush to get those like middle petals.
Okay, so you're
shading.
So I'm imagining you're either pulling every petal apart from the flower, which I guess they do for the pressed frames anyway, or if you're doing it as a whole flower, would you? I imagine you'd have some sort of aperture there then. So
why would you imagine that? What do you mean? Like you cannot. You're talking as a scientist. I don't even know what aperture means.
Now, let's say you're just wanting to put a darker shade in the center of that flower. I imagine that an aperture being, say, a hole in another piece of paper, say 5 centimeters away from the flower. By the time the spray paint or the color of the spray gets to the paper, it's now collimated at that point. So it's going straight through, and you're just getting the cutout part of the paper hitting the flower.
I don't even know collimated was a word.
It just means it's going straight instead of spraying out.
So like you're talking about like a stencil.
Yeah, like a stencil.
Why don't you just say stencil?
Well, because it's an aperture.
Just say stencil, man. You don't have to get like nerdy about everything. Anyway, you could do that, I guess. I'm probably not going to do that though. But you could.
So you could have a stencil for like veins, I guess, as well, if you really wanted to.
Ugh, that sounds like a lot of work.
No, well, you go get a laser
like
cutter to like cut out the vein shape of a stencil, and then you just
that's a lot
put it
of
over
work.
the top of.
And that is why. That's the main reason why I don't offer color correction, is because it is a whole nother skill. It's a whole nother like kettle of fish in itself, in my opinion, another thing to learn how to do and invest in. And for some people, it's going to be worth it, right? Like they want to be able to offer that service and it's a selling point for their business. For us, it's not. I don't have time right now with a 5-month-old and a business. I don't have time to like learn how to airbrush things.
Sure, to me it makes sense if it's a framed item, but if it's going into resin, I probably wouldn't color correct, because unless you're then sealing the flowers, it's going to run most likely in the resin.
I think you'd have to. I think everyone that color corrects seals. So the first question that we were referring to is, how can you color correct white flowers? Personally, I would go with a Design Master floral spray, and I would try and find one not in a bright white, but in like an ivory or a champagne or a cream color, because that's going to look a little bit more realistic, I think, than like a bright white. Because flowers, yes, they are very bright white on the day, but like that's going to be obvious. So I would try and find like an ivory color spray, and then I would be doing very, very light sprays. So with that floral spray, it's really important that you have a gentle hand and you're sort of doing these light sprays over and over again until you get the desired result that you want. Don't just be like, psh, like you're bloody spray painting the brick wall. Like that is not going to work.
Otherwise, you may as well just open up a tin of paint and dip it.
Basically, it's just going to look really blocky and heavy and weird, and like you spray painted a flower. That's exactly what it's going to look like. So really light sprays, I think that's probably the easiest and most accessible way to do it. Like you can buy Design Master sprays online. So very, very easy to do. And I would also be experimenting on obviously not that person's flowers. I would, maybe get some grocery store flowers or something like that and give it a go first to see how you like it.
Yeah, air dry them and then see if you can bring them back.
Yeah. Well, you don't even have to air dry. You could silica dry them and then see how they go.
Well, if you silica dry them, they should be closer to the start.
You're going to silica dry them for a bridal order anyway.
Yeah, I know, but isn't the point of colour correcting to prove that you can take it from the worst possible outcome to back to where it came from?
I guess. Great point. Great points here. So you just referred to sealing the color before you put into resin. And this is the second question that we got, which was on our YouTube channel. And the question was, should you spray flowers with anything before you put into resin? Like, if so, what? So I would always recommend sealing. If you are going to color correct, I would always recommend sealing with like a clear acrylic sealer. There's like Mod Podge. There's all sorts of different brands that you can get. Krylon, I think, is another good one. Krylon Triple Shine or something like that. I don't know. We use that often to seal stuff. And then another instance I would always recommend sealing is if you get a like pre-dyed flowers, so preserved flowers that have been chemically dyed. You can tell the ones, like they're weird colors like blue and purple and pink and stuff. Some of those colors will run in your resin, and the trick is like just to spray all of it because you don't know which one's going to run. Typically, I found black, blue, and purple are more likely to run in resin than, say, a lighter color like pink. Red will run as well. I've had gold run.
Yeah, we didn't even know it was spray painted gold.
I didn't even know it was spray painted until I was like, wait a minute, there's shimmery stuff in the block. It looks cool, but I did not know at the time that the foliage was spray painted because it wasn't actually that sparkly until we put it in the resin. Bleached ones are fine. I've never had a bleached, like preserved ruscus or fern or something like that run in resin, and pink as well. I haven't had pink run either, but better safe than sorry. Just spray it with a clear lacquer before you put it in resin, and I would spray it and then let it dry as well. So make sure that it dries really well. You don't know how that lacquer is going to react to your resin, so make sure it's nice and dry.
Yep. If you're a bouquet preservation artist, you'll probably know what we mean by running at some point, because the brides don't tell you what flowers have been spray painted by the florists.
Sometimes you can tell and sometimes you can't.
Yeah, which I guess is weird, because how come you can't tell that, but you can tell when people do colour correction?
Well, I guess it depends on the skill level, doesn't it? So we recently did a block where there was purple roses in it and the purple colour ran in the resin. And I did not know that they were spray painted. I just thought they were purple roses. They were this light, beautiful lilac colour. And perhaps maybe if I had better floral knowledge, like of types of flowers. I'm not a florist, so I don't. But I didn't know that that was not a natural colour of rose. So that florist that spray painted those flowers did an excellent job of colour correction.
I think on that one it may have been more noticeable if we didn't dry the flowers so well. Like if they had gone...
Yes,
like
we did a very good job.
Well, if they had gone more air dried, you would have been able to see, okay, that part didn't go brown, that part
possibly.
stayed purple.
Possibly. So, I mean, like, I think we've had a couple of moments where we haven't known that something has actually started out.
Maybe it's because the florists are just getting a solid coloured flower and just spray painting the tips, and we're just viewing it as, oh, okay, it's a two shade kind of rose.
Maybe.
Whereas colour correction for the actual flowers, you're being told what colour the flower should have to go to.
Or you're working to a photograph.
Yeah.
So you're trying to bring it back to something that it was when it was fresh. Whereas a florist is more likely being told, our wedding is going to have orange. Make it orange. And so the florist kind of has free reign to go, all right, we're doing orange, and they'll use an orange spray paint, and they really determine the colour. And then the bouquet preservation artist has to try and bring it back to what the florist made it.
Just doing a sidestep here. You said you were saying before that you would seal with, say, a Mod Podge spray. So Mod Podge is kind of like a glue spray.
I would seal with a clear acrylic sealer. Mod Podge is a brand, but you don't have to use Mod Podge. You could use something else.
Okay, and so...
Like even hairspray would probably work.
I saw a question the other day being, can you spray flowers with Mod Podge, or can you like seal them with Mod Podge and put them into resin sealed so that the resin doesn't seep into it and not get the bruising effect that you would get if you just put unsealed roses?
Can you? Yes. Does that work to mitigate against bruising and transparent petals? I don't know. I don't think so. So we did get this question on TikTok as well. I did a little video where I was spraying some dahlias with Mod Podge spray to try and keep the petals intact instead of falling out, because dahlias, as we all know, love to just bloody fall apart like a sad teen girl watching a rom-com. But like, that was my main goal, was to try and keep those dahlias together while I was placing it into some bookends. And one of our followers said, does this help with the transparency of the petals in the white dahlia? And I said, I will report back, because I haven't finished that bookends yet. And we just finished them off, and I don't think so. I don't think it helped.
Okay.
I don't think it did anything. I still saw like some transparent spots and some not. And so like it wasn't good enough of me. Like it wasn't a good enough
Experiment. Trial.
I'm just willing to say that no, I don't think it worked because I can see transparent spots
Okay.
still. Yeah.
And so if you're wanting to avoid the transparent spots, you would colour correct.
I would. And I think if I was to colour correct any flower, it would be white. Because that's the easiest one.
Okay, and so bringing all of this background, so
Please do.
the question that we started with was, how do you colour correct white roses? So,
I answered it.
so-
I would do it with Design Master spray in an ivory, a champagne,
sorry.
or a cream. That's what I said. I
Okay.
already answered the question.
Yeah, okay.
And I would use a clear acrylic or a clear sealing spray. Do you have to use a clear sealing spray on all your flowers? No, you do not. No, you do not. And I think a lot of people assume that as well. And at the beginning of their journeys, they say, do I need to do something to these flowers before they go into resin? No, not if they are fresh flowers that haven't been dyed previously. If they're just like regular old flowers, no, you don't have to treat them with anything before they go into resin. I know that some people will do like a flood coat of roses before they put them upside down, like in ring holders or tea light holders or what have you, to mitigate against big bubbles coming out of those petals.
That would also make sense to stop the silica sand falling down.
Yes.
You do a flood coat
Yes.
first, then you pour out the excess out of the flower, and then you put the flower back into the upside down piece.
Yeah, but you don't have to. You don't have to do that
No.
if you don't want to.
You might enjoy silica sand on the top of your pieces.
I don't think anyone enjoys silica sand. So color correction, do we know a lot about it? No. Did we make a podcast about it anyways?
Yes.
Hopefully you picked up something useful. If not, hopefully you had a bit of a laugh with us as you're in your studio, or maybe you're doing admin, or maybe you're just, I don't know, just listening to us in the car or something because you love us so much and you just want to hear us talk absolute rubbish.
I like to imagine people are in their art studios doing work.
So do I. I know for a fact that Hillside Art Studio listens to us while she's working.
Well, she listened to one thing.
She requested we make another podcast. And although this podcast does not pertain particularly to her, I hope she listens to it anyway.
If you have any questions that you want answered, leave a comment in the YouTube, or does Spotify allow comments?
Yes, we
Okay.
talked about this in the last podcast.
Yeah, leave a comment and we'll try to get to it in a future podcast episode.
And if we said something heinously wrong about color correction and you feel the need to correct us about color correction, please do, because we love learning.
And we'll address that in a future episode too.
Or maybe we won't. All right, I think it's time we stop talking.
Yeah, sounds good.
Let's do it.
All right, see ya.
Bye.